Imagine coming home after an exhausting day, dreaming only with a little peace and comfort, and coming across a scene that looks like an absurd script. This is exactly what happened to Caterina. Her feet hurt, the mind was sold out after hours of negotiations with Italian partners, project approvals, and resolution of crisis with suppliers. The clock scored 7 at night when she finally crossed the apartment door, longing for a hot shower and a quiet meal. But fate had other plans. The scene that awaited her was worthy of a grotesque theatre, the mother-in-law, sister-in-law, and her husband aligned at the entrance as if they were posing for a family photo. The solemn air and forced smiles immediately light a warning signal. "Finally you arrived, honey," exclaimed Donna Ludmilla, clapping with exaggerated enthusiasm, as if Caterina were the main attraction of a spectacle that had already started without her. "We have great news. Our Dimitri has won a 30,000 ruble bonus for closing a big deal." Caterina forced a smile, looking at her husband with a mixture of tiredness and curiosity. Working as a manager in a furniture store, this bonus were not exactly routine, but they weren't impossible either. She even rejoiced for him until she realized that there was something more behind that happiness show. "How wonderful," he replied, starting to get his coat. "Congratulations, Dimitri." But before the sentence could finish, the mother-in-law was already resuming the speech, practically jumping out of excitement, "And the best thing is to come. Our son decided to invest all the money in a gift to Tamara. After all, she just got a job in the bank and needs to make a good impression." Here, Catherine felt her stomach wrap. Tamara, her 32-year-old sister-in-law, had spent unemployed months, living at the expense of her mother and brother, borrowing money whenever she could. "And what did he buy?" he asked, already feeling the answer. Instead of words, Ludmilla simply pointed to her daughter's feet. It was impossible not to recognize. There were his shoes. Those the same she had bought in Milan during a work trip in an exclusive boutique. Soft leather shoes, impeccable sewing, noble metal buckle, its little extravagance, its refuge of elegance amid the rush of everyday life. 80,000 rubles invested in quality and style. And now, there were shoes on someone else's feet, like a trophy. "Isn't it beautiful?" the mother-in-law continued, completely ignoring the expression of shock on Catherine's face. "Dimitri remembered the model. He said that if you use it, it's good. Of course, we had to complete with a little more, since the awards didn't, but it was worth every penny. Tamara deserves the best now that it will deal with important customers." Catherine turned slowly to her husband. Dimitri, who hitherto avoided looking at her, stared at any point in the wall, as if the painting could absorb it. "Dimitri," she said, with a calm that hid a storm, "we can talk, particularly." "But what talk, my daughter?" Ludmilla interrupted, with a tone that left no replicas. "My boy bought it, I approve, that's it. Tamara needs to dress well for work, and these shoes are perfect." The phrase sounded like a knife. Caterina felt something freeze inside her. Not saying anything else, he went to the room, followed by her husband, who closed the door behind her as if it could contain the damage. "I can explain," Dimitri began, already defensive. "My mother saw her shoes, she loved, and when she received the bonus, she suggested buying an equal for Tamara. He said it would be a great gift for the new job. I thought they were normal shoes." "Normal shoes?" repeated Catherine, sitting on the edge of the bed with a sharp irony. "Dimitri, these shoes cost ILO. Then 1,000 rubles. I bought it in Milan, in an official store, with certificate of authenticity." The husband's face has emptied in color. "Oh, 80,000? But I paid 15. The seller swore it was a quality product that was worth each ruble. She released a bitter laugh, almost a growl. "Of course it was worth. For him. You bought a cheap falsification from my shoes, presented your sister without even consulting me, and on top of that you thought you were doing a favor. I didn't know yours were original. I thought you had bought a copy too." He stammered. "What if she knew?" she pressed. The silence that followed was the most eloquent answer that could exist. Caterina got up and returned to the living room, where her mother-in-law still admired Tamara's new acquisition as if it were a work of art. "Donna Ludmilla," he said, in such a cold voice he could freeze the air, "I need to show you something." From the closet, He removed the original box of the shoes, with the invoice, the certificate of authenticity and even photos of the purchase in Milan. Here it is. 80,000 rubles. Go compare with what your boy brought home. Ludmila's face was changing as he examined the documents. Is that a fake? He murmured, as if the words they gave when they leave. A low-quality Chinese copy, confirmed Katerina, pointing to the details, the irregular sewing, the rough leather, the buckle that was already beginning to oxidize. Look well. Compare with the photos of mine. The difference is stark. But the seller assured it was authentic. Protested the mother-in-law, as if that changed something. It may even be authentic trash, said Katerina. The problem is not just the quality, Dona Ludmila. It's the attitude. You celebrated a purchase made at my expense, without even asking me, as if you had every right to have my husband's money and my things, as they well understood. Tamara, finally embarrassed, took off her second shoe, holding it as if burned. I didn't know, Katerina, it started. It doesn't matter if I knew or not, she cut off. What matters is that you have turned a ridiculous situation into a circus of vanity. Dimitri has spent money on a rough imitation, you have proud of it, and now you find out that you were deceived. Poetic, don't you think? Ludmila, red with anger or shame or both, exploded. This salesman stole us. 15,000 for a fake. Let's sue him. Katerina just shook her head. Process who they want. But rather, reflect on why they thought it was normal to do so. Why they assumed they could make decisions for me. Why, instead of asking, they preferred to invent a story where you are the victims. And with that, she turned, leaving them there, with fake shoes in her hands and an uncomfortable truth hanging in the air. Sometimes the biggest decoy is not what we buy, but what we think we deserve. The seller never said it was original, noted Catherine, with a calm that only increased the tension in the air. He probably sold a good quality copy, and you invented the rest. 15,000 for a well-made replica. It is a fair price. The question is not the value, but why the hell did you need exactly a copy of my shoes? Dimitri, who had hitherto remained silent, finally manifested, as if testing the floor before stepping. Katia, we can return our shoes in the store. We still have the invoice, not even 24 hours passed. They can, Catherine agreed, without taking his eyes off him. But that doesn't solve the background problem. What problem? The mother-in-law crossed her arms, already defensive. The problem of finding it normal to spend family money on imitations of my things without consulting me. And the problem of thinking that they can have their child's economies as they understand. Katerina settled in the armchair, looking at the three with an expression that mixed disappointment and patience about to run out. Dimitri won an award, congratulations on that. But this money should have been used in family needs or at least discussed with me before. Instead, you three decided that you would buy a replica of my expensive shoes and present Tamara. As if it were a noble gesture. We just wanted the best, Tamara murmured, lowering her eyes. It would be best to buy something for her, suitable for work at the bank. Do not copy my wardrobe. And, above all, not turning it into a family celebration where unknowingly, I am the central piece. Ludmila Konstantinovna exploded, the red cheeks of indignation. Why, what an exaggeration. Shoes are shoes. A copy, so what? Ludmila Konstantinovna Katerina was slowly talking, as if explaining something obvious to a stubborn child. Imagine that I buy a replica of her engagement ring and use it, telling everyone that it was a gift from my husband. How would you feel? This is completely different. Why? In both cases, it is a copy of what belongs to someone else. The only difference is in price and sentimental value. Dimitri, to everyone's surprise, took sides with his wife. Mom, Katia is right. I should have spoken to her before spending this money. Are you going to ask your wife for permission now? The mother-in-law pouched, as if he had taken a slap. I am going, yes. When it comes to great sums or gifts for the family. Ludmila Konstantinovna looked at her son as if he had just denied all the principles she taught him. Then he turned to Catherine, with a tone between supplication and challenge. Katia, now what? What do we do? It's simple, she answered without hesitation. Tomorrow you go to the store, return these shoes and recover the money. Then, if you want to buy something for Tamara, go to a decent store, choose a suitable shoe for it, not a cheap imitation of what is mine. What if they don't accept the return? The mother-in-law was already looking for loopholes, as always. They will accept. You have the invoice. The shoes were not even worn outside this house. By law, they have 14 days to give up the purchase. Tamara nodded, resigned. It's okay. Tomorrow I go. One more thing, Catherine paused, ensuring that everyone looked at her. Next time they want to spend family money on surprises, argue with me first. I am not against gifts, I am against decisions made at my expense. At your expense? The mother-in-law widened her eyes. This award is from Dima. Ludmila Konstantinovna, Dimitri and I are a family. Our budget is shared. His award is our money, just like my salary. But you earn more. So what? We spend the needs of the house, and significant purchases are decided together. This is called family planning. Dimitri lowered his head, embarrassed. Katya, the mother is right. I should have spoken to you first. Ludmila Konstantinovna still grunted for a few minutes, but gradually realized that the battle was lost. Half an hour later, she and Tamara already begged Katerina to take the damn shoes and help them recover the money in the store. Katenka, for God's sake, stay with them, the mother-in-law pleaded. We didn't know they were not original. Ludmila Konstantinovna, I don't want counterfeit shoes. I already have the real ones. But we spend that money. You spent what you chose to spend. Tomorrow return and recover. If you do not accept, it will be a valuable lesson, not buying expensive things in doubtful places. Tamara took the box with the shoes, determined. Tomorrow morning I go to the store. I promise. The next day she fulfilled the word. The seller didn't even question the return, he was probably used to regretful customers. Dimitri apologized to his wife and swore that he would never make important financial decisions without consulting her. With the money back, they bought Junt. As a pair of classic and elegant shoes for Tamara, made for her, not a shadow of what belonged to someone else. Ludmila Konstantinovna was still ugly for a few days, but ended up conforming. Now, however, he had asked, with suspicious curiosity, the price of everything Katerina used. Katya, how much did your bag cost? He asked each meeting. Why do you know, Ludmila Konstantinovna? She answered, Serena. You're not planning to buy a copy, are you? Of course. Just out of curiosity. So look on the internet. Prices are all there. A month later, Tamara was made at the bank and celebrated with her first salary. She bought a beautiful coat and invited the family to dinner. This time, no one copied anyone's style. Each one had their taste, their identity. Dimitri learned to discuss higher expenses with his wife, and Katerina, patiently, explained to her mother-in-law the difference between personal and family budget. Ludmila Konstantinovna never understood why someone would spend more than 5,000 rubles on a pair of shoes, but stopped criticizing her daughter-in-law's choices. And Katerina continued to wear her Mélane shoes, remembering, each time she picked them up, that night when she almost lost them to a scam. Now he kept all the proof of expensive purchases and showed them to Dimitri, not to sport, but so that he could understand the real value of things and not repeat errors on impulse. The following year, when Dimitri received another awards, they spent it on a trip to Prague. Tamara, in turn, was already earning enough to buy quality pieces and no longer depended on her brother's gifts. Ludmila Konstantinovna, from time to time, was still sighing as she reminded by those shoes and told her friends, with a tone of those who admit a defeat, in the end, my daughter-in-law was right. Better something good than 3 counterfeit. Although, deep down, he kept preferring to save and buy the cheapest, at least stopped judging the choices of others. And the history of shoes has become a kind of family legend, an example of what not to do with money and why talking before spending is always the best option. Now, when someone thought of a big purchase, Dimitri was still asking, with an ironic smile, "Are you sure this won't become another shoe story?"